Hi, everybody. Welcome to this webinar. Delighted today that I am joined by Caroline. So I'll get Caroline to introduce herself in 1 minute. But so today we're going to talk all about writing your own media bio. I know for me, it's such a the thing I'm thinking about a lot at the moment is PR. So I'm really looking forward to this, Caroline. So shall I hand it over to you and you can kind of introduce yourself and we'll go from there?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I hope you're going to be writing along as we go, Mike, then.
Oh, absolutely.
Excellent. Cool. Yeah, sure. I'll take the reins. That's absolutely fine. So I will, I can just share my screen as normal, obviously, can't I, as well? So anyway, welcome everyone to this webinar or how-to experience. It's great to be here. I'm Caroline Joynson. I'm the founder of Cheerleader PR, and I'm going to teach you how to write your media bio today. So I'm just going to share my screen, so I've got my intro in there as well. So let me just do that. I just need to share the screen. There we go. Right, okay, excellent. We have liftoff with the slides. So welcome this morning. I hope you're all well. And yeah, really excited to be here for this how-to session. So as I say, I'm Caroline Joynson. I'm the founder of Cheerleader PR, and I'm a PR strategist. So all about getting the right stories out to the right places at the right time. And that's where we're going to start with the media bio today. Is a really great place to start thinking about your PR. So I'll just let you know what we're going to cover in the webinar. So we're going to start with what a media bio is, just clearing that up once and for all. And then we're going to talk about why you need one, you know, what you can use it for, what it's all about, why it's important, and yeah, where to use it, and crucially for a how-to, what to put in it. So by the end of this session, you will know all about media bios, and I really hope that you will, you know, take some notes about yourself, because this is all about you. This is about you writing about yourself, which, you know, some would say is one of the most challenging things to do, actually. And I know, you know, having done PR for hundreds of clients, that actually writing about yourself is harder than writing about your clients. But the great thing is that once you've done it, for one, it makes you feel great. For two, it's you've got it and you can use it, you know, for promoting yourself. And I think it just really gives you something to work from, to start putting yourself out there, really. So I'm really passionate about media bios. I think it's a really good sort of gateway into PR, really. So yeah, just a bit about me. As I say, I'm the founder of Cheerleader PR, which I set up just over 18 months ago. But I mean, I've worked in PR for over 20 years. So yeah, I obviously love it. I wouldn't do it for that long. But I set up Cheerleader PR because I wanted to empower passionate business owners to promote themselves. Because as much as I can come in as a PR consultant and, you know, go out there and shout about all the good stuff that a business is doing, I want you to be able to do it for yourself as well. Because then, you know, when I don't work with the client anymore, you know, I want them to have the skills and those you know, those tactics really to do it for themselves. And I think the other thing about doing your own PR, whatever level, whether that is just you've got a media bio and you use it occasionally, right through to actually pitching yourself proactively for opportunities, is that getting ready to do your own PR really, I think it forces you, for want of a better word, to really think about how you want to present yourself to the world and how you want to present your business. And you need to be able to really succinctly and quickly introduce yourself and your business to anyone that you want to work with, whether that's journalists, whether that's, you know, owners of Facebook groups, whether that's someone who's got their own networking group. And so you need to be succinct, because no one's got loads of time to listen to a long story in the nicest possible sense. It's, you need to get really clear on your messages and what you're trying to say. And I think because you need to do that for PR, once you've got clear on that, it gives you confidence. And I think those two things together are really powerful, because once you're clear on what you want to say, saying it is actually so much easier. And I think, again, a media bio really helps with that. And just I always like to do a little bit of a sort of a definition from my point of view of PR and what it's all about, just to kind of so we all start from the same point. And that PR is all about other people saying that you're good at what you do. Because with social media, particularly now, we've all got our own suite of media channels. We can have our own TV station channel on YouTube. We can have our own radio show on, through a podcast. We can have our own newspaper or news media through putting our own messages out and our own stories out. And that's all brilliant. That's fantastic. We can do that now. But ultimately, that's your opinion as an individual. You're choosing what to put out, much as you choose what to put in an advert if you were paying for some space. The difference with PR is that somebody else who owns a channel, whether that's a media channel or their own social media, they are choosing to put you on in front of their audience, which really gives you credibility and authority, because it's someone else kind of giving you that rubber stamp of approval. So it's all about featuring or being featured by other people. And that's comes down to relationships and reputation, which, as we know, is the foundation of business. So that's why PR is so powerful. And, a lot of PR people, me included, do talk a lot about the media, because that is a massive part of what we do. But it's only one part of that whole piece of, building relationships, influencing people, sharing your message, and, as I say, getting that rubber stamp of approval from other people that you know what you're doing. So obviously, me being here teaching you how to write a media bio is a form of PR. I'm not in the Yorkshire Post doing it, but actually through doing it in this way, I'm reaching the audience of the Northern Affinity and beyond. And so that shows that Mike believes I know what I'm talking about. So it's thinking of yourself in that way of how you can, what you can bring to other people's audiences, what stories you can tell, what expertise you can share. And that's why PR is so powerful. So that just gives a bit of a flavour, really, of why we're here talking about media bios and what it's all about. So without further ado, let's get going with the media bios. So let's start at the beginning. And what is a media bio? So a media bio is an interesting one, actually, because I think more recently they have become more of a known about thing and more of an in thing. And I guess traditionally in PR agencies where I've worked in the past, we would call it, like, we'd put together a media pack or a press pack, which would be kind of background information about a campaign or a client. And a media bio really is a summary of an individual. And in the case of this, it's a summary of an individual business owner. And it's really a way to present yourself succinctly. And it's probably a maximum of 2 pages as well. So it's not a massive document, but it's kind of like, it's a summary that says, this is me, this is what it's all about, this is what I'm all about. So within that media bio, you will have your story. You'll hear me talking a lot about stories and expertise through this presentation, but it will include your story, and that's your story as an individual business owner that brought you to the point you are at now of having your business. It includes your expertise, so the things that you know about more than anyone else, more than the average person would know, who and how you can help people to learn about things, what you bring to the table, really. And then the other part is your contact details, which sounds really basic, but ultimately the idea of the media bio is, 1, you're summarizing everything and putting it in a nice document that someone can read, but 2, you want them to take action. So you've got your contact details in there so they can reach out and hopefully, work with you in some way. But it's a lot more than that. It's a lot more than a 2-page document. I think there's almost a bit of psychology involved, I think, in them, in terms of putting something together, as I say, to put yourself out there. So this is why there's so much more, in terms of why you need one. A media bio acts really as a calling card, and it's a bit like a press release in the sense when you send something out to people proactively. So with a press release, you're sending that out to get somebody to feature you, to tell them a particular news story. It's really only ever a calling card in the sense that it's a reason to get in touch, and it's a reason to get somebody to respond to you and ideally do what you want them to do, which is feature you. So it's a calling card. It starts a conversation in a lot of cases, and I think it's like a statement of intent in the sense you're saying, I'm a serious business owner. I put together this bio to summarize me and my business, and I believe in this, and I've taken the time and the effort to do this. So I think it really sets the scene for you being, a serious business owner who wants to get themselves out there. the other thing is that it really presents your brand. And I think if you've spent a lot of time and effort and invested money in developing your brand, then actually a media bio is like a way to sort of present it to the world, really, as a summary. So I think it's thinking of it in that way. It's like how you present your brand to other audiences and to the media. So it's really a powerful, important document. And the thing is with media bios, just as with PR, it's not just about your business. So it's not just, you have got this business, I do PR for people and it's all about what I do in PR. It's actually more about the person behind the business, and it shows the person behind the business, and it shows it as particularly for, the audience I'm talking to today, you're probably an individual business owner who set up a business that you're really passionate about. And there's more to you than just your business. There's a whole story about how you came to do that. And I think this is a really nice way to be able to show that and show that sort of journey you've gone through to get to this point. And that's what other people are interested in. They might be interested in PR tips, but they're probably also quite interested in, well, why does she do this? How did she get to do this? What's her backstory? And that's where a media bio brings those two things together. And the great thing, I think, once you've got one is it essentially acts as a master document that you can draw from, because you've taken that time and effort to put it together into this document, and you can pull out different bits. And I always say, I mean, I've never known a journalist to ever just run somebody's media bio. It doesn't work like that. And also, even a journalist maybe wouldn't have time to read a full media bio. It's almost like, because you've got this 2-page document, you can pull out the parts you need for whatever you're pitching for. And that might sound a bit weird. Well, why would you do it if a journalist would never read it? But for a journalist, the summary might be the most important part. For a podcast host, the whole thing might be the most important part, but particularly your kind of key topic that you talk about. And if you were introducing yourself, the summary would be interesting. So it's almost like going through this exercise. It's very cathartic because you're bringing everything together into this full package and putting it all into this one document that you've got. So it forms a basis of your PR efforts, because you can use it to reach out and as I say, pull out the bits you need to make things happen. So it is kind of strategic as something you can use as well. So as you can see, I think they're really important. I think it's a really good exercise to go through to pull one together.
Do you find, Caroline, sorry, Caroline, do you mind me asking a question? So do you find that people, you're talking about the story behind, essentially, your story to get where you are. Do you find that a lot of people think they don't have a story, but actually when you dig down deeper, there is something there? I can imagine from a lot of the conversations I've had that people would think that, but there is a lot of relevant there for just about all of us.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that, actually, because I commented on something in a Facebook group last night that was very relevant to this, where a business owner had said, I feel like I don't have a story. I don't have a rags to riches story, was how she described it. She said, you see these people who've gone from being in debt to being a 7-figure business owner or whatever, and it's quite, and this sort of rags to riches story. And she said, I don't have that, so it puts me off actually doing PR, because I just don't think anyone's interested in me. And actually, the thing is, not many people, not everyone has a rags to riches story, but everyone, I would say, has got some sort of overcoming some sort of obstacle to get to where they are now. And that's what people are interested in. It's what's similar to what they've been through. It's things that people have overcome. People are interested in the highs and lows, but particularly the lows of people's lives and what they've learned along the way that's got them to where they are now. So I think it's, as I go through the process, you'll see kind of how I try and draw those things out. But yes, loads of people think they don't have a story, but I would argue that everyone does. It's just finding those bits that really would show how you've got to where you are now, really.
Absolutely. That's great. Thank you.
That's okay. So as I say, where do you use the media bio? So talked about this a bit already, but as I say, it can be used for so many things. So it's for PR opportunities, for getting in front of other people's audiences. As I say, podcasts, they ask for your sort of bio quite often for podcasts, because they use it as a basis for introducing you and stuff. But for speaking opportunities, you can just call it a speaker bio, and essentially it does the same job for pitching to speak in groups, at events when we're allowed to have them again, or online like this, in networking groups like this, but also you know, you can use it to help you to sharpen up kind of your own bio and sharpen up how you introduce yourself. The other thing is, when you go through the process we're going to go through, that it can give you lots of ideas for your social media content, and a way to draw out, again, those personal stories about how you came to have the business that are really powerful. And I'll just say as a caveat, I never encourage anyone to share anything that they don't want to be shared publicly. You know, it's about picking the bits you're comfortable to put out into the world, because obviously once they're out there, you can't take them back. So you don't have to, like, it's not warts and all situation. It's just picking the bits that are going to help you to connect with people, really. So as I've said, and it can be used as the basis for your media pitches. So again, you're picking out the bits that are relevant, because I always advise and encourage you to tailor every pitch to the person you're sending it to, wherever it comes on that list there as well. So you're always adapting based on who you're sending it to, just as you're adapting your messages for whichever audience you're sort of working with and pitching for. But all of those reasons show why it's so valuable in your brand building, because, as I say, it's like a bit of a "this is me" kind of moment of putting it out there, and saying, you know, here's how, this is how it all works, really. So let's get started. So I do actually have a media bio template, which I can add into the notes on the into the chat, sorry. And I don't know, Mike, if you can add it afterwards or whatever, but you don't need it for this particularly, but you can use it afterwards to kind of go through and fill out. But it's just a template that you can use to start to build your own media bio.
That's great, Karen. That's great, Karen. What we can do for the Northern Affinity partners, I can put it onto Workplace in the knowledge library.
Oh, brilliant.
People can access it there anytime.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So that's a template that you can use, but just in true Blue Peter style, I'm just going to show you one that I've made earlier, just to give you, I think it's all very well and good to talk about these things, but unless you can kind of see an example, it makes it very difficult. So I'll show you mine. So this is my media bio. It's a PDF document, so it's built on Word. As I say, it just needs to be something that's easy to use and accessible. You can obviously have them professionally designed if you want to. You could do it on Canva, but this is just kind of a straightforward example of one on Word. So hopefully you'll just start to see the different things I'm going to that I've talked about, and I'm going to sort of go through with you as well, and how to actually build your own. So when I talk about, you know, being an extension of your brand, obviously there straight away I've got my logo on there. I've got a photograph of me on there which matches the colours, so it's kind of that sort of brand is coming through straight away. Obviously it's got my title, and then the sorts of opportunities that I'm interested in or up for. And then we go into the actual sort of nitty-gritty of it. So these are the things we're going to look at in this session today. So I went through this process that we're going to go through today to write this media bio, and it's that thing of looking for the sort of the key threads and the key themes, I suppose, that come out when you go through this exercise. So you're very welcome, Mike, if you want to add this into the resources for the Northern Affinity in Workplace as well after, because I'm obviously not going to read it all out and go through it. But I'll probably go back to it at the end, and I can kind of explain some of the aspects of it. So basically, you'll see from the summary that it's not just about me in PR. These are things I'm happy to share that I've put out into the world, but I talk about my career, where I started, but also that I was really shy as a kid, and ended up working in PR, which is a very extroverted world. But actually, you're still working behind your clients. So finally going out with Cheerleader PR meant I had to go out as myself and put myself out there. But then, you know, I talk about, I suppose my equivalent to my rags to riches story, for want of a better phrase. You know, I was made redundant, and then unfortunately I was poorly with postnatal depression, and I then came back to have Cheerleader PR and to do what I do now. And for me, that's just kind of my story of transformation, if you like. So that's in my summary. So I've got my sort of professional side, I've got my personal side. As I say, this is a side I'm happy to share, and I've worked up to sharing this over a number of years. So it's not like I just suddenly decided to tell the world these things. But actually, things like being made redundant also working from home or working in a co-working space, I've actually resulted in a lot of coverage for me, because they're things that are interest to a wider audience, that people can identify with those things. So we're going to go through that process and see how that works shortly. So my summary, specialism to comment on, these are all in the template as well. So things I can talk about. And then I've got a longer story. So I'm going to go through the order I wrote this in, and that I would advise you to write yours in as well. So then there's a more detailed story about me, how I came to do what I do now, a testimonial, my links, and my contact details, and then some examples of places I've had coverage in. But I will talk about all those things now for you, and there's a template, and you can have a link to this as well. So let's come out of enough about me and let's go back into a bit more about you. There we go. Right, okay, so you may look at that and think, oh God, that 2-page document, where the heck do I start? And I'll, think that's daunting, but there is a way to do it that is going to make this a lot easier. So in terms of where to start with it, I actually always say, and I say the same with press release as well, start with the easy bits. So we'll start with those, then we'll write the long version of your story, then we'll look at your expertise and specialisms, then you'd look at the summary. So actually the first part of the media bio is the last bit that you would write. So just have that as kind of comfort, really, that it's not as daunting as you think when you first see that document. And then there's some extra bits that we would add, that you can add in as well, which I can talk about a bit more as well. But just to say that this isn't just an easy sort of whistle-stop process. It is quite, challenging, as I say, to write about yourself, to think about yourself in this way. So just be kind to yourself. You're not just going to be able to write this in one go and it's done. In most cases, it's going to need editing, it's going to need refining, but just have a go. And as I say, it's a very powerful process to go through and a powerful document to have as well.
That's a quick question, Caroline. Would you advise working with somebody that maybe knows you reasonably well? So when you are doing it, because like you said, sometimes it's very difficult to write about yourself.
Yeah.
Somebody else who can kind of go through the journey with you to an extent. And I don't mean just sit there while you write it, but being able to kind of send it to them get their ideas and kind of edit it that way. Would that be something you would recommend?
I mean, I think you could kind of sort of go through the story part together and sort of talk that through to help you to identify those points that are the sort of the pivot points, really, or the those sort of key points in your story, because you might not see them. We're very good at talking ourselves down, and the things that other people might think are amazing, we might think, oh well, that's just what I did, or that's just what happened and I dealt with it. And so I think being able to go through and pick those things out, you could definitely work with kind of a business bestie or a family member, or you could do, two of you could kind of partner up and do this exercise together. Actually would be a good way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it is very personal. I mean, it's up to you how personal you make it. As I say, it's totally up to you, but you probably, to go through that process, it's nice to have make it a bit enjoyable and do it with someone else, definitely. So let's start with the easy bits. So this is how I would start with a press release as well, just as a little bit of an insider information, that actually once it starts to look like a media bio or a press release, it actually feels like you've got sort of something to work with. So start off, put your logo in, put your name in, and your title that you use for yourself, because then it just starts to look like something that's going to mean business. And the type of opportunities you're looking for, so like with mine, it was sort of case studies, women in business profiles, speaking opportunities, podcasts, whatever it is you're actually looking for in terms of opportunities, list them out. They are in the template actually as well, so you can just adapt the ones that are in there. You need a landscape image of you. I've been asked before, why does it have to be landscape and not portrait? But just because a landscape image takes up a lot less space, and equally for PR purposes, generally the media use a lot of landscape images rather than portrait ones. So just use a landscape one, just to, as I say, just to take up less space, and it just looks, looks smart. I'll add in here about professional photography that I always advise, if you can have professional photography done, then do it, because it's worth its weight in gold, basically, because for that thing of, you know, your brand looking professional, you being portrayed as you want to be, it's really great, a sort of confidence boost, and something that you can use on all your platforms, so it's really well worth it. And then add in your contact details, because of course that's a nice easy bit to do as well. So that's your website, social media links, your phone number. For this purposes of this document, particularly with the media, if someone wants to get hold of you, they need your number. So it's kind of like, make yourself as easy to be contacted as possible, because this isn't something you're necessarily going to put everywhere and be worried about everyone having your number. It's quite, you know, specific where it goes, so don't be afraid of putting your number on there. So that'll be the starting point. And then I guess this next point, Mike, is the bit where, as I say, you might want to involve somebody else, because we're talking about, you know, your story, your longer version of your story. And this is a process, as I say, that I think can be quite therapeutic, can be really quite emotional. I mean, I ran this session as a 2-hour workshop, like a live workshop, where people writing them alongside me, and you know, there were tears apparently of people who realised just how far they'd come, and that's why I think this is such a powerful exercise. But it's basically going through and bullet pointing your life story, just literally get it out of your head. But the focus is really the points that got you to where you are now, i.e. with the business you've got now, you know, what brought you to this point. And it's like the highs, the lows. I mean, you know, it's not necessarily, you know, your school career, but for me, having been really shy as a kid, that is relevant to what I do now. So that went in mine, for example. But it's thinking the highs, the lows, you know, what you learn, what led you to where you are today, and ultimately why you do what you do. Because again, those things are really interesting to people, whether that's, you know, media or, you know, podcast hosts or your audience. They're actually interested in this stuff. You know, when you share a personal story on social media, you obviously often get a lot more response than sort of business tips, for example. And the thing is here, again, as I say, you know, it's life events that other people could identify with are likely to be in there. As I say, you could have overcome illness, you could have had a career change, could have been made redundant, you could be a parent, could have had health challenges or been divorced. They're things that actually are things that other people have been through and identify with and want advice on. So as much as this is aimed at being a business owner and ultimately getting coverage that's going to help your business, your life is also important and interesting within this as well. And then it's sort of writing out as a story, which again, I mean, I allowed people kind of like 20 minutes, half an hour to do this in my workshop that I ran. So again, try not to sort of spend days or, you know, hours on it, because I think it's just getting it out it sort of as quickly as you can sometimes, and just having a go is really important, and is a good way to get going with this. But the thing is, you're actually writing about yourself in the third person, which is really weird. But for PR purposes, that is what we do. So press releases are always written in the third person, apart from the quote. And the same with your media bio. I guess it's because you're sort of showing yourself as an entity and as a business owner, so it's slightly different. But that's because that's how journalists write about people as well. As I say, let it flow. You can edit it later. Just the most important thing is to get it out there. As I say, it's not easy, so be kind to yourself. And ultimately, you're looking for kind of half a page. So you're not, as much as you could be writing, you know, a massive list of bullet points, because you're going through this process of refining and seeing what are the most kind of key parts that got you to where you are now. That's how you're going to edit it down and make it more sort of succinct, really. So that's your story. That's the long version, and probably that's the hardest bit to do, if I'm honest. But it's worth it. and the other thing is, when you've got your media bio, or when you've got your list of bullet points of those highs and the lows and how you got to where you are now, it's something you can actually just stick up by your desk, just to remind you, you know, on those days when you feel rubbish, you know, because we all have them, remind you how far you've come and what you've achieved. Because I think this is why it's so powerful, because this is a way to do that, and it's doing it for work. So it's like a legitimate reason to kind of sort of celebrate yourself, really, and what got you to where you are now. So that's the long version of your story. The next part I would go to is your expertise. So again, as much as people say they don't have a story, they also often say that they're not experts, you know, they don't see themselves as experts. But actually, we're all experts in something, whether that's, French plaiting your daughter's hair, or working from home, or equally an expert in PR or whatever it is you do. You'll be an expert in something. It's just, again, I think we're very modest, especially British people are very modest. We don't like to blow our own trumpets. But again, the thing is, unless you do that, unless you employ a PR company, who else is going to do it for you? And no one else knows you as well as you know yourself. So it's thinking about qualifications, but life experience is just as important here. So it's going through and thinking the things you know more about than the average person. So that could totally be your business, but it also could be things in life. So it could be things how you work, how you live. It's your business journey, and it's things that you could give advice and tips about. So I've given Mike tips about working from home on a number of occasions because it's something that's part of my life and something that I do. For example, so I'm not saying like I'm a professor of working from home, but I've got life experience of that. So that's something I've done a lot of stuff around, funnily enough, especially during the lockdown, because people were really interested in that. Obviously, I could talk about how to write a press release, how to write a media bio, how to start promoting yourselves, but also I could write about how to recover from redundancy. So it's thinking about things that are, you could talk about and you could write about and give tips about. And again, bullet point it down, do a business list and a life list, and then think about almost those key threads that come through from your story. What are things that you could go on a podcast and talk about? What would be, I call them like your signature topics or your signature talks. Because actually there's probably, say, 3 to 5 things that you could easily just go and give a talk on. One of mine would be how to write a media bio now. But equally, there's other things, how to start promoting yourself. So just have a think about what those are. I mean, probably your signature topics and talks wouldn't be how to work from home, because that's not something I get paid to advise on. But how to start promoting yourself and write a press release is something I could talk about. And it's relevant to what I do. So I guess the expertise bit, yes, definitely have those softer things about how you work, how you live, things you can advise on, but definitely sort of, get really clear on those sort of topics to do with your business you're an expert on, because they're the sort of things people would want you to come on to events like this and talk about. So go through that. And again, that's a really powerful exercise because it gives you that list of all these things you're actually an expert in. And I think we don't recognize ourselves in that way enough. But you'll see journalists asking for experts in all sorts of things, and why shouldn't it be you if that's what you do and what you're an expert in? So that's the expertise piece. The next bit, which I think once you've gone through the 2 previous bits, so the long version of your story and then your bullet points of your expertise, is summarizing your story into like 1 to 2 paragraphs. And it is tough to do that because you kind of got it all out there, you've gone through this exercise. But actually, when you then come to kind of write that up into a couple of paragraphs, and you can weave in a bit of your expertise as well, because it naturally comes through because you're kind of summarizing what you do as well. That's just bringing it all together, and that's probably the bit you're going to use the most, if I'm honest, because that's the bit you use to put yourself out there. You can't ever tell the whole story, and you haven't got the space or the time necessarily, but the summary bit is really, really important. So you've got your life into half a page, you've now got to get it into 2 paragraphs, and this is why I say it's tough, but trust me, give it a go, and you'll get there. And just keep editing it, keep going. But as I say, once you've written out the longer story and the expertise, this bit's actually, at the start you think, how the hell will I do that? But actually when you come to do it after doing the other 2 bits, you'll see how it comes together. And as I say, it's useful for so many things, because you can use it for your introduction when you introduce yourself verbally. You can use it for your bio on LinkedIn or other places. You can, when you're going to give a talk, people want you to send your bio in, you can send your summary in. So it's something that you can get a lot of use out of. So the final bit, if you like, of the media bio, kind of what's involved, what's included, is sort of I call them optional extras, because if you didn't have these, it's not the end of the world, and I don't believe they're like you have to have them for it to be successful. But you can include testimonials. So I mean, I've got one in there of mine, which was somebody who in their testimonial kind of showed the results of what the work that I'd done with them. So I really liked that one, because I thought it just shows, you know, the results which people are interested in. So you can include testimonials. If you've ever won any awards, then put those in there, because again, that just gives that extra credibility. I mean, there's a whole other thing about entering awards and awards to do with PR, but they can be really useful. It's another way to get that kind of credibility and endorsement for what you've achieved. If you've had media coverage, then you can include the logos. If you've got online coverage, then you can include the links to that coverage. You can't include screenshots of coverage for copyright reasons, but you can include the links and you can include the logos. But again, I don't really think the media, they're a bit like, you know, they're more interested in is it right for them than whether it was right for another media outlet. But I think it just gives a little bit of extra clout. But I think it's almost with the logos, it's more for potential clients want to see those and see. It just makes you stand out from other people doing the same thing as you, and shows again that you're serious about putting yourself out there and you know, making that difference really. So media coverage is definitely something you can include. I get asked a lot whether I would advise to put your media bio on your website, and it's totally up to you. You can have a media page with your media bio on there with links to coverage, with, you know, sort of almost saying I'm interested in being featured, so I've got a media page. It's kind of, again, another statement of intent really. So it's totally up to you if you do that, but it, you know, it definitely, if you put all this effort into making it, you kind of want people to see it. And the same with your coverage really, in terms of those links and those logos. So once you've got all of those bits, so we talked about the easy bits, which is your logo, your photograph, your title, your contact details, your long version of your story, then your expertise, which you're going to get into sort of, I don't know, probably up to 5 to 10 bullet points. When you see my example, actually, I probably got quite a lot in there. I'm going to edit mine down to like probably 3 to 5 signature topics now, because that's something I think it's a much easier then to say, what if you want to speak in someone's group, you can just send them that list and say, these are some of the talks I can give. Here's a list, you know, with titles. So I think that's really powerful. Then the summary of your story and expertise into 2 paragraphs, which I know you're going to hate me for, and then those optional extras of testimonials, any awards, or any sort of logos for media coverage. Not actually media coverage, it could be links, as I've said. And then you're putting it all together. So you're going to have the template, which I've talked about, and you can put it into the order that it then would be in, which is of course summary of your story, areas of expertise or specialisms to comment on, the long version of your story, testimonials and contact details, and media coverage if you want those as well. And as I say, mine's just done in Word, because Word's easy to copy and paste out the bits I need to then use for my pitches and send to people. Obviously, particularly if you're going to put it on your website, or when you're going to send it out, save it as a PDF, so it's kind of you know, a whole document. Other people can't edit it, because really it's your document, it's your story and your expertise. You want it to be kept in one piece. And as I say, you can get it designed. You could have a designer work on it for you, or do it in Canva, but you just want it to look professional. And I think actually a Word document for this purpose, you know, is absolutely fine. And that's how to write a media bio. So I don't know if you've got any questions for me, Mike. I'm sure you have. You're good at questions, or whether anyone else has asked any. But yes, happy to answer questions. And just to say, if you want to find me, these are my details. Cheerleaderpr.com. I've got a Facebook group called PR for Passionate Go-Getters. A Facebook page, Cheerleader PR, and on Instagram, I am cheerleader_PR. So come and find me. But yes, have you got any questions?
We do have some questions, Caroline. So one's about essentially once you've done the bio, what do you do with it? I know I know there's a lot of things that you can do it with, but kind of just a summary of what people can do once they've kind of put that together.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the media bio is really a sort of a starting point for doing your own PR, and obviously, you know, that's what you do with it is kind of the whole other side of PR and getting ready to put yourself out there. So That's thinking about, I suppose my whole approach to PR is thinking about where you want to be seen, where's going to make the difference to your business. So it's thinking about, and obviously I could do probably a whole other session on this, but it's thinking about, right, well, who are my audience? Who are my target customers and clients? Who am I actually trying to reach? Who are the people that I want to do business with? So it's thinking about that, and then thinking about what you want to achieve in the business as well, because everything I do in PR is about linking it back to your business objectives and wanting that PR activity to really help you to achieve what you want to achieve, so it's worth the time and effort you're putting into it. And then it's thinking about, well, where do your audience hang out? What media do they read? Do they read the Yorkshire Post? Do they read the Times? Do they read Psychology's magazine? It's so each business and business owner is different based on who they're trying to actually reach. But then it's thinking about, where do my audience hang out in the media and online? And then that'll give you that clue to start thinking about, well, I need to be seen in those places. So that's where I need to put my effort and attention to work out where I could pitch to get some coverage. The other thing is, you can start using it straight away, because say, for example, you really want to look at getting media coverage. A really easy way to do that is to look at #journo request on Twitter, which is what journalists use to look for case studies, experts, quotes, all sorts of things. So if you went on there and saw an opportunity that was really relevant to you, you could just grab a couple of lines of your summary, send that off on an email or a direct message and say, why you'd be the right person for that opportunity. So you could literally use it straight away for that sort of thing. The same with podcasts, actually, that, if you wanted to pitch for a podcast, there's a lot of podcast guest Facebook groups that are, looking for guests, or people wanting to be guests, and you'll see they'll say, can you put your bio in, and so you could use, as I say, the media bio in its entirety could be used straight away for a podcast opportunity. But I think the key is, I guess, that I'm afraid there's not like a quick way around it, is that you have to work out where you want to be seen and then start to think about making contact and putting yourself forward. So this is just the start, but I think going through the process gives you the confidence to start doing the research and to start actually asking for the opportunities.
Absolutely. Do you find, Caroline, then, that if the more stuff you've done that might be related to PR, whether it's sessions like this, whether it's podcasts, whether it's videos, whatever it might be, the more likely people are to get other coverage as well? So when they are putting themselves forward, if they've done another podcast, it helps do that?
Yeah, definitely. I think you start to get a bit of momentum. So for me, I've spoken in a lot of Facebook groups in the last year, and someone might see me speak in one and ask me to speak in theirs, or equally, once I've spoken in one and I've given a talk, then it's easy to go and say, oh, I've just done this talk, would you be interested in me doing it for your group? So I think it's kind of got, people say it's like a marathon, not a sprint, because it's just kind of consistently putting yourself out there on your own channels as well as trying to get on other people's, so that people, when they think of you, they know they're thinking what you want to be known for, because then you can do talks or around that subject, and then people, if they think of, oh, I need someone to come and talk about PR to my group, then hopefully they'll think of me, or if they need somebody to as I say, a lot of stuff. I wouldn't say people think of me to come and ask me to talk about co-working or working from home, but those sorts of opportunities just give me an opportunity to get out there and raise my profile generally. And then, the more of this stuff you do, the more opportunities come. It genuinely does, because I think you get into like more of a PR mindset, and when you meet people, if you look, I always say to people, look in your existing network to start with. Who in your network's got a Facebook group, who's got a podcast, who might want a guest blog, and there are ways you can actually, in a genuine way, build up even better relationships, because you're offering something, for someone else's audience, and you're helping them, and it helps you to get known without you know, it's a great way just to start and get your toe in the water, and then more will come, actually.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned there about it being a marathon. There's a lot of, as you know, kind of, I guess, synergy between PR and SEO. It's one of those things that helps business. Well, I actually think as a concept, essentially they are quite similar as well, is that they take time, you need to build it, and it will grow and build momentum over time. It's not a quick fix type thing. Now, for some people, there will be examples where it has worked overnight, but generally speaking, it's a long-term strategy for you and your business. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you do get, you know, somebody gets, particularly say a product-based business, and they get a link from, I don't know, for, let's say, the Daily Mail, because it's got like 5 million online readers or whatever. You know, that could result in a massive spike in orders. So for that reason, it can really help. And the great thing is with PR, you know, when I've talked about working from home, or I don't know, being a mum in business, for example, you know, I was in the metro talking about a thing called rushing woman syndrome, would you believe? Which was about how women are rushing around all the time, and in the lockdown they'd had to stop and think about that. But from the metro, I got a link to my website, which has got, you know, the domain authority is over 90 out of 100.
Yep.
So like you say, for anyone who's into SEO, you know, it's a great, the two things go hand in hand really well, because if you get links from traditional, you know, well-known media, respected media, then Google thinks, oh, well, they must be good because they've got a link from the Telegraph or the Metro or wherever. So yeah, I mean, I think you can, yeah, the gradual kind of building of your profile and putting yourself out there and making those relationships, it kind of goes alongside with when you know, trying to make sales in your business or grow your business. It's all the same sort of, it's like, just keep going, keep putting one foot in front of the other and be consistent. And then you can just sometimes get these kind of hits where, like I say, you get an amazing spike to your website because you've had a link. But yeah, just that it's an ongoing process. It's not a quick fix. It's an ongoing process, but it definitely gets momentum, and then you start to get approached for stuff, and then that's a great feeling.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Caroline. I think there's so many useful tips, which, if nothing else, I've got lots of now actions to do. So thank you from me. I'm sure everyone else does. I see some nice comments on the workplace for a few people as well. So you know, thank you very much for that. It's been really useful, and I will add like I mentioned, we'll get the document and I'll put it onto Workplace for everyone as well.
And yeah, that's fine. I'll send all those bits over to you so people can have them, and I look forward to hearing how you all get on with your media bios.
I'll be sending mine to you soon, Caroline.
You're welcome to send it to me. I'll have a look.
I don't know if I can handle that, the negatives.
Oh no, there won't be any negative. I think the thing is actually, it is daunting to send. You kind of feel like you're sending your heart and soul to somebody, because it depends how personal you go with it, but it is quite, you know, it can be quite personal. But then I think once you send it to one person, it's a lot easier to send it to the next person. So I think it's a really powerful thing to do. So yeah, go on, go and write yours and I'll have a look at it for you.
Thank you very much.
No pressure, but I'll have a look at it for you.
We'll do another webinar where you can take it apart and use that as a case study. Well, thank you very much, Carl. I really appreciate it. Lots of loads of brilliant information, so thank you.